Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers defeat the Montreal Canadiens by a final score of 5-4 in overtime. JT Miller scores the game winner in overtime. It was actually a second goal of the game. This one was on the power play, 4-on-3 in overtime, and a resilient win from the Rangers. They were down 3-0 in the first period, and if this was last season, they weren't coming back. That's just the way it is. If they were down 3-0, it was game over. And so for them to have been able to score 2 goals at the end of the first period to cut it to 3-2, then they actually went down 4-2. And that could have been demoralizing, but they, again, were able to come back and score a couple of quick goals. I mean, the goals they had in the first period were separated by 19 seconds. And then the goals in the second period that they had were separated by 36 seconds. So, they scored their goals, I guess, in bunches, if you will. But Rangers played pretty well in this game, all said. I mean, Rangers outshot Montreal. And look, shot count doesn't mean everything, but they did outshoot Montreal 28-17. It wasn't as if Montreal wasn't dangerous. I mean, they scored 4 goals. So, we've spoken about shots on goal, and the Rangers have been low in that department, especially, recently. But I just think this is a pretty solid game for the Rangers. It was far from perfect. We'll talk about it. There were mistakes made and, players that weren't as good as others. But, for JT Miller to score 2 goals, he's really been playing a lot better lately. And I think that's important. For this team to have any bit of success, JT Miller is really going to need to be a top end player for this team. And you're seeing that just based on what, your eyes, that he looks a lot better than he did, a couple weeks ago, even. Artemi Panarin gets a penalty shot goal, which was huge. I mean, that was a big spot for the Rangers to cut it to 3-2. The Noah Laba line, ups and downs, offense provided, defense maybe not great, but, Laba gets a goal and an assist. Will Cuylle gets a goal and an assist. And, just the Rangers have done just enough to kind of keep you, I don't know if hanging on, that might be a little bit extreme, right? I mean, again, I think expectations, are realistic for most Ranger fans. I don't think anyone believes that this is a cup contending team, and it isn't. There's just, quite frankly. And it's up in the air as to whether they make the playoffs, but they've done enough. In my opinion, what has been, while the East may not be top heavy, it has depth to it. I mean, the 8th place team in the East is probably going to have a hell of a lot more points than the 8th place team in the West. That's, there's still a lot of season to go, but that's how I'm seeing this. And so Rangers don't get much scoreboard help on most nights. I mean, you look at it in the Eastern Conference, most situations, they're not getting the help that they would need. It's on them to get it done. And a really, really bad performance at Chicago. There's been way too many of those. They've been shut out 6 times. It's been well chronicled and documented, right? And I think ultimately it may cost them. But it's situations like this that you can feel, somewhat proud about. A lot of work to be done, a lot of concerns I still have, but this was good, right? I mean, just to be down 3-0. I don't care that it was, look, it was an early comeback, but still, even that in and of itself is impressive. And look, the Rangers, certainly on paper had the goalie advantage. I mean, Igor Shesterkin against Jacob Fowler making his second start in his NHL career, coming off of a shutout. Sorry, that's not true. Not a shutout. Coming off of a win against Pittsburgh at the Penguins in his first start, and someone who's, well thought of as far as prospects go. But the Rangers took advantage of that matchup, right? Obviously a lot more, games under Igor Shesterkin's belt than Jacob Fowler. But let's discuss the lineup, because there were a couple of changes actually. And one of them that wasn't, but it's an update, is that Matt Rempe seems close. I think that Rempe, either he'll return for the back-to-back set in one of the games, Anaheim, Vancouver. I think at the very latest, you'll see him at St. Louis, like for the Thursday game. So I think Matt Rempe comes back this week. I would say sooner than later. Um, it seems like he's pretty much close to ready, right? So he's getting there, but not, quite back just yet. But let's discuss the defense first. And I guess to close the goalie conversation, like I think to me, and we'll preview because there's a lot to discuss. I'll actually be going to the Anaheim Ranger game, so it'll be the first game I've gone to at Madison Square Garden this season. And again, a lot of headlines there. I would think that Shesterkin gets the Duck game, and then Quick gets the Canuck one. That would seem to be a fairly easy decision to me. But as far as the defensemen go, Earl Vakanainen back in the lineup and not looking very good. I mean, look, it's a tough spot. He hadn't played in a while. He hadn't played probably in about I feel as if maybe about 3 weeks. I think it's maybe a little less than 3 weeks. It had been, quite some time. He'd been healthy scratched a lot. And Scott Morrow was out of the lineup. I didn't really see that coming. And so therefore, we only saw the power play on a 5-on-4 scenario once. And they, of course, with Scott Morrow out of the lineup, they went with the 5-forward unit. And it was actually the second unit that got the goal. But as far as Morrow was concerned, I didn't really see it coming. Look, he's had his struggles. Look, I think Morrow has been more bad than good. But I kind of felt like they'd give him a little bit of a chance. And look, I wouldn't be totally stunned if he's back in the lineup next game, although it goes back to that thing I talked about but Sullivan doesn't seem to care about it, where Vakanainen was, a former Duck. But yeah, I don't think that's going to factor into the decision. And quite frankly, Vakanainen wasn't very good in this game. He didn't play much. He has sheltered minutes. Really, what ends up happening is by the end of the game, I think this change may have taken place. And maybe while it wasn't fully consistent, not sure what everyone else thinks, but I believe that it ended up being Matthew Robertson with Will Borgen as the second pair unit, and then it was Soucy with Vakanainen. So kind of Soucy takes a demotion, and Matthew Robertson moves up. And Matthew Robertson really, there's been plenty of times this year where I've been ready to be like, he's not that, let's face facts. He's just not that good. But really, he continues to do the job. And he's providing. I mean, he had 2 assists in this game. Hey, technically, if they gave assists for penalty shots, let's say Panarin scored on his attempts before he took the penalty shot, Matthew Robertson would have had 3 assists, actually. So, I want to give him some kudos because, he's done a pretty damn good job considering that he came into this, going to training camp. Who knew? I mean, I don't think many people thought he'd make the team. He made it as a 7th defenseman, and now he basically played over Carson Soucy in this game, basically. I mean, the numbers would dictate that, the shifts, the ice time. So, again, Vakanainen not good, and really solidifying himself as a guy. Again, at this point, it's between him and Morrow, and when Adam Fox comes back, Morrow presumably gets sent down, and Vakanainen is he's a 7th defenseman. Again, it's been a bad look for Drury in the sense of the Parsonens of the world, the Vakanainens, the Radishes. Those 2-year contracts have not really proven kind. And these guys really, most of them should really be making league minimum. They're not. I think Vakanainen's contract was 1.55. Vakanainen, I thought last year was all right. He wasn't great, but and look, it was a bit of a mess. But I thought that he was decent enough. And whether that was true or not, whether my eyes deceived me, he is a hell of a lot worse this year. So he played 11.5 minutes, was a -2. We'll talk about it. Didn't look that good. And then the first pair was Gavrikov Schneider. And look, for Schneider, he played a lot, 23-40. Look, he is playing over his head, but hey, they're making it work. Rangers have been fairly successful without Adam Fox, but he'll be a welcome return when he does come back. I think Gavrikov's play has even taken a slight hit. And of course, playing with Fox, it helps them both out. So that's kind of the defensive picture. Again, as far as next game, we'll see, right? But this is less. Remember, for a while, taking Morrow aside, this was a conversation about Vakanainen or Robertson. Now, it's Vakanainen or Morrow for sure. And so we'll see what they do next game. As far as the forwards go, Johnny Brodzinski was a healthy scratch, and he had been in the lineup for a lot as well. He had been in there for a while. He had a lot of, he hadn't been a healthy scratch, I think, since maybe mid-November. It had been about a month, I think. Maybe mid-November was the last time. And Taylor Radish comes in. So with that decision, they decided to keep in Hamelash, not send him down. They decided to, stick with Brett Berard, which, I think could have been debated. to be fair, right? So look, not and that Reppy's not too far away. So I think ultimately Hamelosh gets sent down soon. I think that's one sort of easy move that would be made. And beyond that, though, we'll see. There certainly is maybe it's not great competition, but there is competition for sure. And that's with an Adam Edstrom being out again. He wasn't playing that well to begin with, but there is sort of moving pieces and things going around to the point where like a guy like Taylor Radish, even though he got that 2-year contract, he is someone that could certainly be out of the lineup. So it was basically Radish took to Brodzinski's spot, playing on the fourth line with Carrick and Hamelosh. And that fourth line didn't play a whole lot. There was in case I forget to bring it up later, Sam Carrick had a disallowed goal in the third period where he clearly kicked the puck in. Originally, he ruled the goal. It was a distinct kicking motion. But yeah, that fourth line didn't play a whole lot. And that's kind of been the case a lot for them lately. I already spoke of the third line, where, again, ups and downs. Like, Noah Laba has been impressive, right? Like, it was his first home goal, actually, of his career. But again, like, to be fair to it, right, with Laba, Cuylle, Berard, good ups and downs is what I'd say. Contributed to the win, but also we're on the ice for some goals against. For Brett Berard, I want to continue to see him, but I haven't been overly, to be fair. And this is someone who I'd say I'm a fan of Brett Berard. Like, remember him in the World Junior Championships for Team USA. Like, I like Brett Berard, but he hasn't been overly impressive. I like the energy. I like the speed. I like his style. But at the same time, I think there needs to be more for him to solidify himself, in the lineup. More needs to be done. So while I think his spot is kind of safe right now, if he continues to play the way he is, I don't know that it's going to be enough to keep him in there. That all said, I think you may as well just stick with that third line because it's giving you something good. And then it's the top six has kind of been what it is, right? And so certain players I thought were better than others. Like I said, JT Miller with 2 goals. Artemi Panarin, I thought, had a good game. Lafreniere did not. I thought Alexis Lafreniere did not have a good game at all. Connor Sherry, he should not be in the top 6, and but he did have a couple assists. He actually made a pretty nice play on the first Ranger goal to kind of keep the puck in the zone and get them going. But again, it's a bit of a laughing stock that he plays on a line with Miller and Trocheck. It's not ideal for sure. So yeah, I thought the Rangers got off to a pretty decent start. They didn't allow a Montreal shot on goal until Montreal scored at 12:41 in the first. Not that the Rangers had that many chances, but I thought the Rangers were in pretty good control. First half of that first period was really advantage Rangers, not by leaps and bounds, but I thought they were playing well. And then it goes bad quick. I mean, this game we could have been talking about a completely different thing here. But luckily, the Rangers were able to kind of be resilient, like I said before. But it's Zach Bolduc scoring his 7th goal of the season from Suzuki and Caulfield at 12:41. So with this, I just felt like way too much space for Suzuki, where it's a good pass by Caulfield, and Suzuki just had way too much room, and he's able to make an easy pass to the front to Bolduc, who scores. I think blame there for me probably goes, Sherry doesn't do a great job in the offensive zone, so he's kind of caught back. But I think that, Trocheck with a little bit of too much stick waving on Suzuki, and then really maybe the biggest culprit was Carson Soucy in front, kind of being unaware, a bit soft, and allowing Bolduc to just go right in the paint and score there. Again, a little bit just overall soft on that goal by multiple players, leading to a pretty easy goal for Montreal to make it 1-0. Then at 14:10, Arbor Jackeye gets his first goal of the season. So we've seen him in fights, of course, at Rampy. I think he was actually a healthy scratch last game. Reinserted into the lineup, scores his first goal of the season from Carrier and Texier at 14:10. And here is, in the corner in the defensive zone, a bit of a not miscommunication, but a misconnect between Laba and Berard. I'll give it equal blame. Like, they had the puck there for a moment. They lose the puck, right? Laba tries to get into Berard. It doesn't work out. And Montreal's able to make some quick passing plays to a point where Jackeye is able to take a shot from the point, and Josh Anderson is just wreaking havoc in front, where he basically bodies Braden Schneider. Braden Schneider needed to be tougher. I don't think Shesterkin saw it, and through the Anderson screen, Jackeye makes it 2-0. Then, to make things worse, the Canadiens make it 3-0. It's 16-18, so basically 2 minutes after that second goal, it's Jake Evans scoring his 5th goal of the season from Lane Hudson and Joe Veleno. And Lane Hudson is just impressive. Lane Hudson is a really talented defenseman. who is already making major waves and is one that will continue to do so. I mean, the way he's able to walk the blue line and just, really, we'll talk about it on the fourth goal. It's impressive. But yeah, this is one where Vakanainen and Lafreniere are unable to get the puck out of the zone, where Vakanainen kind of chips it to Lafreniere, loses the puck battle. Vakanainen's out of position, and Evans just snaps it past Shesterkin. I think Igor, you can't blame Igor for the first and second goal. Maybe a slight bit of blame for the third one. Again, it wasn't a great game by Igor. Look, the fact of the matter is 17 shots on goal, 4 goals allowed. So it's a pretty ugly statistical game for Shesterkin, but I think that a little misleading as well. Like, he didn't really stand out, obviously, but the goals he let were not overly horrendous. I think the fourth goal he allows is his worst one. And even that one, it was a good chance for Montreal, but I think the fourth was the worst. But the Rangers are down 3-0, and at this point, they had a chance for more. Like, I think there was a breakaway opportunity by Montreal that I think Shesterkin made the stop, or there might have been a defensive play. Again, at this point, I'm thinking this is all going totally south. There might have been a post. The point is, Montreal had a chance to blow it open more. Didn't. This could have been a 4-0 game. And then at that point, I'm sorry, it's over. It just is. But the Rangers draw a power play. Will Cuylle is interfered by Lane Hutson at 16:59. First power play unit unsuccessful. They made some changes there where Lafreniere was on the unit instead of Cuylle. They moved guys around positionally. Zibanejad more at the point than Panarin, who had been. That kind of makes more sense. Zibanejad is just more defensively responsible. And Lafreniere, I think he had the net front role, I think is the way it went. Whereas Cuylle had that. I think Lafreniere, I believe. But they didn't score on that part of the unit, but the second unit does score. And it is a goal by Noah Laba, again, his first goal at MSG, 5th goal of the season from Cuylle and Sherry. And give Sherry a lot of credit. Where this puck is almost out of the zone. By the way, Gavrikov was the defenseman that was on the second unit. So Braden, think about it. Braden Schneider, he lost that second unit spot. Now, I know that obviously he has more even strength responsibilities, but it says something that Gavrikov, who plays a ton as it is, was on there. So just a little bit of a note. But it was a nice play by Sherry to beat Jack Guy, I think, was the one who was unable to get it out. Sherry kind of outmuscles him. And then Will Cuylle drives towards the net, and he is able to put it towards the net, and then Noah Laba just starts whacking away at it and scores. I think one shot was stopped by Fowler, and the next one goes through. That's a huge goal to make it 3-1. And then in 1908, Artemi Panarin is held on a breakaway by Noah Dobson. And it's a penalty shot for Panarin. It was a nice play by Zibanejad to flip it out. Like, he deserves credit. He won't get an assist there, but good job by Zibanejad to see Panarin, give him an opportunity, and Panarin scores the penalty shot. I believe they said it was Panarin's first ever penalty shot goal. That was big. Like, that's a big spot because, I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing to me right there, right? Like, it's a bit of a demoralizing feeling. You go down, he doesn't score there. You're losing by 2 going into the second period. He's able to get that goal to make it 3-2. Now, unfortunately, at the end of the first period, Gavrikov trips Brendan Gallagher in 1952. And while the Rangers killed off that penalty, not that far after, at 3:17, Josh Anderson scores his 6th goal of the season from Hudson and Suzuki. Cuylle is not able to get it deep in the offensive zone. A little bit of a line change situation going on, but it didn't really affect the play. And to me, Vakanainen backs off on Hudson. Hudson, look, give Hudson credit, but Vakanainen kind of gives Hudson some room. Laba is unable to kind of prevent the Hudson to Anderson pass. So Anderson is just left really open with a great opportunity and scores scores a puck on a slap shot that really goes through Shesterkin. So while it was in a good area of opportunity, that's one that I think Igor would want to have back. I think that was the worst of the 4 goals he allowed. But again, defensive breakdowns as well, and it makes it 4-2 Montreal. However, a little more than 4 minutes after that, the Rangers respond. At 7:22, Will Cuylle scores his 9th goal of the season from Robertson and Laba. And a nice cycling by that third line to the point where Robertson takes a shot, it caroms off the boards, and Cuylle banks it in off the Fowler. Give Berard some credit, too, for getting in front, causing some problems, and a good, just smart play by Robertson, throwing it off the backboards. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but Cuylle corrals it and again banks it in for the goal, makes it 4-3. And then right away, 36 seconds after that, JT Miller scores his 8th goal of the season from Robertson and Sherry. So 2 assists for Sherry, 2 assists for Robertson. And it's a nice job by Sherry to retrieve the puck behind the Montreal net, gets it to the point for Robertson. And really a bad rebound by Fowler. Like Fowler needs to glove that Robertson shot cleanly for a faceoff, but Miller gets it. And he's able to, on his backhand, go 5-hole past Fowler to tie it up at 4. So the Rangers tie the game up, even though they were down 3-0 in hockey time. 11 minutes before that? Yeah, like less than that even, 10 minutes of action. Pretty quick 4-goal strike by the Rangers to tie it up at 4. Then there are matching minors at 12-24 between Will Borgen and Owen Beck. Nothing comes of that in the way of goal scoring. And the score is 4-4 going to the third. Like I said, in the third period, which I thought the Rangers played pretty well, low event third, right? Like not a whole lot going on either side, but I thought a smart, well-played period by the Rangers. You had that Sam Carrick disallowed goal 5 minutes into the third, correctly called, by the way. And ultimately, this game goes to overtime. Again, I'm trying to think of any other things that really popped out at me, notable-wise, from the third. Nothing's really coming to me right now. But we go to overtime. And, of course, there were chances both ways. Things got dangerous. I mean, there was one point where Matthew Robertson had a great opportunity, but shoots it wide. And for some reason, Panarin, there's not much of a defensive awareness there for Panarin, where Panarin just kind of isn't thinking to go back. It ends up in a breakaway for Kapanen the other way, but he shoots it wide. So that was kind of the scariest moment, I would say, where it's kind of, and that's the risk in the overtimes. When these shots go wide, it can really lead to things the other way. But what ends up happening soon thereafter is Panarin is slashed by Jake Evans. And so the Rangers go on a power play, and it's the 4 you'd expect. The 4 forwards in that 4-on-3 being Miller, Trocheck, Panarin, and Zibanejad. And give credit, I think it was Trocheck in both cases. He wins the faceoff, and then that leads to a save by Fowler. But then he wins it again. That's really important. Now, 4-on-3, look, they probably would have, if he didn't win it, they probably would have been able to reset fairly easily, but still, helps a lot. And it's a nice passing play where it goes from, originally Panarin drops off to Trocheck, then he throws it back up top to Zibanejad, and then it's a one-time bomb by JT Miller. A really great shot by Miller. 2nd goal of the game, 9th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Trocheck. And yeah, Panarin even called, Panarin did a nice job of kind of, at least kind of making it seem like he was going in front. I think it threw things off. Those the little things do matter there, and give credit to all 4 guys in the ice at that point. But JT Miller, he's had his success. I've talked about it in overtime, the shootout. He's been very successful. But the good thing now is he's doing more in the 60-minute regulation portion. And the Rangers do cap off the comeback. 5-4 win in overtime against Montreal. Rangers got to get as many points as they can, and it has been pretty when they've gotten it. Sometimes they scraped that 1 point, but they needed to. Coming off that Chicago game, and down 3-0, this was big. So now, here we go coming up here. Staying at home, and here's the thing, Rangers have been playing better at home, which is very important. And now they will take on Anaheim in the return of Chris Kreider, and to a lesser extent, Jacob Trouba. Again, I'll be at this game, so I'll have a little bit of a different perspective. My record in games this year is 0-1 because I saw them lose in overtime to Toronto. But the thing that concerns me here a little bit, and I feel like the Rangers have had bad luck in this regard. Like, the good thing is Montreal was coming off of a win. If Montreal had lost to Pittsburgh, it would have been a 3-game losing streak. I'm telling you, I think that that would have made a difference. Instead, the Rangers were the team that came up with the bad loss. That stuff, especially in hockey, it matters a lot. And so Anaheim is coming off of a couple of losses to the Islanders, and what hurts more is to the Islanders and the Devils. Like, that sucks as well, but that even aside, like, look, they're going to be hungry. There's emotions in this game, right? In the sense of Kreider and Trouba, and I don't know how, the individuals will respond. I don't know how, the Rangers will respond. It could be fairly inconsequential, but again, like, it's, Trouba's probably going to get mostly boos and Kreider mostly cheers. Now, look, I think Kreider, the way that things ended last year, wasn't good. Like, and I think, at least in the short term, it does taint is a strong word. It doesn't taint his Ranger career, but that sucked. I mean, like, I think we're being fair here, right? But I think most of us, I think think fondly of Kreider's career as Ranger, and deservedly so. Like, he is, I mean, a lot of it is quantity, but he's up there in terms of a lot of the, the goal scorers, power play goals, games played, just a lot. Playoff games. All that to say, he's going to get a very nice ovation, right? And, the things that worked out differently, who knows what the future could have held for Chris Kreider, and he could have lasted as a lifelong Ranger. Didn't work out that way. And I think that he's had success in Anaheim, but I also think that it was the right thing to do. And I think it's worked out for him. I think it's worked out for Zibanejad. I think it's worked out for all parties as best it could. Kreider, I don't think would have been doing here what he's doing with Anaheim. But yeah, so you get all that going. So I'm interested in just seeing how that all plays out. And you just know that, like, look, something's going to happen. Kreider's going to score a goal, or somehow Trouba. Like, I'm ready for that. But Anaheim's had a really good season, and maybe they're falling on tougher times lately, but Anaheim really, 19, 12, and 1. Like, they're not as good on the road as they are at home, and that's something to kind of look at. But I think that this is a big matchup, because then you go home against Vancouver right after that. And I know the Rangers have had struggles in the second game of back-to-backs, but Vancouver just traded Quinn Hughes. Their roster's not looking very good. Vancouver, they had the worst record in the NHL. The weird thing is they've actually been halfway okay at in the road. They haven't been good at home, but the Anaheim game's big. If you can win an Anaheim game, and look, I've said it with the Rangers, like, there's no guarantees against anyone, right? The Rangers have shown that they could play well against the top teams and kind of suck against the not-so-good ones. We've seen it this year. But I think that you can really start to build something. But the Anaheim game, I don't feel amazing about it, but if you can come out of there with 2 points, it could actually lead you down a path. There's some winnable games, like, coming up here on paper. And I know that doesn't mean a whole lot, but I really do view that game as a kind of a swing, like a pendulum swing type game, where are you going to continue to, like, if you lose that, then it's kind of like, all right, you've lost 2 of 3. Well, actually more than that. You've lost 4 of 5. But, it's a big one. And the Rangers are going to have to win as much as they can to hang around in this. Really, they go on a little bit of a losing streak here. It could just be just enough to really put them in a really, really tough situation. But, again, give the Rangers a lot of credit. They improved to 4-8-3 at home. It's slowly but surely, it's still really pathetic, but it's getting a little bit better. And they win a big game against Montreal, who could very well be very important Eastern Conference competition. And look, Montreal gets a point themselves, right? So in a perfect world, the Rangers would have won a regulation. But at this point, 2 points is 2 points. Down 3-0. They find a way. You get the Panarin penalty shot goal. You get 2 goals each in very short order. And JT Miller is the hero yet again. 2-goal night for him. He is able to get the power play goal in overtime to give the Rangers a 5-4 win. So they'll continue more action at Madison Square Garden, and it will be the return of Chris Kreider and, to a lesser extent, Jacob Trouba. They'll come back to MSG in what will be a very interesting game Monday night against the Anaheim Ducks.